Hi, I'm Will Slickers, and you're listening to Good Morning Hospitality. And this episode is brought to you by our friends at Sojo. Now, you probably heard us talk about Sojo before, and why should you care about an amenity company? Well, I'm here to tell you that Sojo is more than just amenities. They're actually a software and tech company, and the byproduct of their software and tech is the amenity delivery and logistics. So, just like how we went from tape charts to property management softwares, from Excel spreadsheets to dynamic pricing, now we're going from the shopping cart, digital or in person, to Sojo. You make turnover days suck a lot less by automating the bullshit that goes into turning over a vacation home. Get Sojo with the link in the show notes and make sure you get 30 days free by using our link directly. You won't regret it, so get Sojo.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, you guys.
Morning.
Good morning, hospitality.
I'm so sad that we're back to cameras. I really miss seeing you guys in person already.
I was going to say the same thing, and I'm jealous of you Eastern Standard Time people. This is the best morning. I woke up, I got to go get some breakfast and have coffee, and it's 10 o'clock now, and I feel like I've already accomplished so much. So
I know. I feel like now I can't really
jealous.
complain about getting ready in the morning, which I have been doing. Now that you know the truth.
It feels like I only just got back, but that's also
'Cause you
true.
did.
So,
'Cause you did.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's brain
tell
fog today. Apologies, but my flight out of Barcelona, me and Sir Jamie Lane, our fourth co-host, was canceled, and so we got to spend an extra day in Spain, mostly at the airport. Not even in Barcelona, but
It wasn't just canceled. You got on the flight.
Where
for
were you
3
redirected to?
We were on the flight for 3 hours. And then they canceled it, rescheduled it for the next day at 10 a.m. And then 10 minutes later, it was at 11. And then 10 minutes later, it was at 12. And then it ended up stopping at 3:30. And I looked at Jamie and was like, nope, we're taking a different route home, buddy. I don't trust this one. Who knows if that one even took off, but we got on the 6:10, which means we woke up in the 2 o'clock hour. We were an hour away. Thanks, Delta. But yeah, I'll be on the phone with Delta today. So.
Well, I had not quite as much of a adventure as you, but for anyone that was with us at Scale, I was saying that I was going to behave myself and go to bed early and not do because I had a 6 a.m. flight. And I did not. I did go from the bar, but I did go home and change and went to the airport. And so that was a real callback to some younger years. And actually the thing that was great not great in quotes, but one of the lounges in the Lisbon airport has little sleeping pods in it. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. So I did actually get to take a nap and then, slept for the 9-hour flight home. So it wasn't too bad, but the brain fog was for real. I was at my friend's baby shower the next day and I was just not present.
You're brave for taking a nap in a pod at the airport after not sleeping. I would have probably never.
I set a lot of alarms, and then I forgot that when you fly through the States, they do I had to go through passport control again, and then also through another set of security at the gate. So I was a little rushed there at the end, but we made it.
Yeah, great times. I was home for 36 day and a half before I flew out again. So I'm in Orlando, made it back. But nothing crazy on my end. I slept the whole way home. So that was nice.
Oh, we're in the same state. So close, but so far.
I know it's hot and humid here, and it's about to rain, so I can't wait.
Welcome to my life.
Uh-huh. Well, are you guys ready? Because, okay, so to give some context for any of the listeners now or any of our live viewers, scale rentals in Barcelona, all about scaling. I think you had to have a certain amount of inventory or properties managed in order to attend, which was awesome because you knew immediately you're already talking to people in a very similar boat or situation, if not close to your similar boat and situation. But we got to have some cool experiences as a podcast with each other, and I'm like shocked that we're not like tired of each other yet. But we got to experience some really cool things. We got to meet a lot of our listeners in person, which was really surprising on it being a European conference and being like, people are like, oh, we listen to you at like 3 p.m. every day. And it's like, what? Crazy. Or not every day, every Monday. And it was just a really fun trip. So really wanted to say, I want to say thank you to Damien Sheridan and Jean Paulo, who invited us out there to put on the pod room and to record. Also to our sponsors, we had Safely, AutoHost, and Operto, who we got to do an awesome panel with. It was just a really good experience. And then I also need to say thank you to you two, not to be all sappy and whatnot, but thanks for putting up with me for being tired and sometimes a little grumpy after not getting enough food or sleep. So you really owe you guys a big one for putting up with that.
Will
It's
Will was very funny.
yeah,
We had a good time with Will in his first time to Spain. So
yeah. It was
stories for when you see us in person.
exactly.
And for the end of this episode, for the audio version, not the live version, I'm putting our blooper 3-minute elevator episode, which you would probably, if you want to know a little bit of context, we got stuck in an elevator for like 30 minutes and Michael and Mark Simpson just left us in the apartment and just chilled.
We were
So
stranded.
That's not the whole story.
No, and it was one of those times where speaking Spanish really did come in handy.
seriously, without Brandy, we would have been screwed. So stay tuned to that at the end of the episode. But all right, so not to continue to ramble on, I know we want to jump into the conversation, but there's two things I want to mention. Again, without our sponsors at Sojo and TravelNet, this show would still be back a year ago where we're kind of chaotic and we had no real structure. So thankfully, we have sponsors who help us build structure around the content. So Sojo and TravelNet, they are not only two great sponsors of the show, but they are also great companies to work with. If you are a vacation rental manager or a host, you need to get with them, figure out what solution works best with you. TravelNet has not only Track as a property management software, but they have Atlas and of course Rented from a recent acquisition. And they integrate with Sojo perfectly. So if you have 50 properties or more, you can brand all of your amenities, make it super smooth, and show off so you can earn also a bit more book direct when it comes to all of that good stuff. So thank you to our sponsors, and we will make sure that you guys get everything very special with a link in the show notes. All right, guys. You want to jump into today's conversation, which I think maybe we let Brandy kick off because she was the one that orchestrated this beautiful first night dinner.
I'll walk us into it. So
there we go.
Okay.
There we go. Bring it in.
Hospitality takes a lot of different forms. You've got the hyper local restaurant or hyper local hotel or hyper local operator of short-term rentals. You've got 5, 6, or as Brian Chesky calls it sometimes, the 11-star experience. And then you've got kind of the experience that you didn't know you wanted to have, and you kind of fell into it and just had an excellent experience. So on that, Brandy, if anyone knows her at least reasonably well, she is a big foodie and excellent cook. And so she picked out a restaurant for us on the first night. Brandy?
Sure. So, yeah, we wanted to do something special to commemorate kind of like where the podcast has, how far the podcast has come. And so Barcelona has a lot of Michelin starred restaurants. There's, certain waves of cuisine have originated, and especially in this part of Spain. And so I did some research and picked out Oria, which is in this beautiful monument hotel. And so the whole thing is the theater from when you first walk in. So you have options of different courses, but basically you're getting, you know, at minimum like a 10-course meal. And everything is custom. You know, Will has some allergies, so the menus that we had were custom for Will's allergies, and those had been printed out ahead of time. The way that we are seated, and the way that our glasses were arranged and the cocktails that we had, everything is placed very perfectly. And so I think when you go through that kind of experience, that level of cuisine and, you know, like those kind of restaurants are just another level. It's not just going to have a meal. Like everything is so precise. Even when Will and Michael got up at the same time and they folded their napkins at the same time, it was just very, very precise. But at the same time, like the staff was also really friendly. I've been to a lot of those kind of restaurants where sometimes you feel like this is a little too stuffy to even enjoy being there. And I think the sommelier and also our servers were like fun, and we got to talk to a lot of them. And so it was like you got that high level of attention and theater, but also it felt a little bit more relatable and it felt comfortable.
Yeah, I think the staff kind of eased into it. They probably are told to try and be faceless at the beginning and then feel it out with the guests. But by the end of it, you know, we got to know one of the guys that was Romanian living in Barcelona for the past 10 years and yada yada. But the thing with places like that, they are all extremely well trained. They probably all went to school for hospitality. You know, they're working in one of the top restaurants in one of the biggest cities in Europe. And, you know, every detail, like Brandy said, was figured out, sorted. There wasn't any hesitation. There was no empty glasses. There was no, you know, plate sitting empty in front of you for more than a minute.
Yeah.
It was all highly orchestrated, very well run, and they worked as an absolute team. You know, the typical restaurant, there's one server, but these people would just like swarm to a table, do their theater, and then let you be. So there was no asking if you wanted this or that. They already knew it. It was fantastic. They anticipated what you wanted or needed, or that you didn't know you wanted or needed, and it was there.
And they also were adaptable, which I thought was really interesting. So Will had this like really awesome oxtail ravioli that came instead of one of the seafood courses. And I was like, we're going to have one of those also. And so, I mean, these meals are structured very precisely. They have certain seatings, but they were like, you know, very, you know, willing to adapt. It wasn't even a question of, you know, making that change. Yeah, so I thought that was great. And also just like the knowledge that they had was great. They bring out like the wine Bible, and I think I know more about wine like the average person, but certainly not enough to go through this like very detailed book full of Spanish wine. And I think the wine we got was fantastic. The cocktails were great. Like everything about it was, you know, sometimes you can go to those restaurants and you walk away feeling like I could get a dollar slice and a beer. And that was not the sentiment when we left.
Yeah. Well, the profile that you gave him for the wine, I was like, yeah, like everything Brandy's saying right now sounds amazing. That's like the wine I would want. And every time I've tried to describe, like maybe I'm just a bad describer or I just don't go to dinner with the right people and we get the wrong bottle of wine or whatever. But like when we got that first sip, it was like, whoa, this is exactly how I imagined it when I heard it. So I think just like being able to take that description or being able to describe it properly so that way we can imagine it was amazing to get it and not have it be something completely different of what we expected.
Yeah, and I would liken that to kind of the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton or the St. Regis types of properties where when you go, you do expect a standard, and sometimes expectations don't meet reality. And that's the hard part about luxury is the bar is set really high. You know that, you know, if you check into a Ritz, the bed's going to be comfortable and the sheets are going to be high quality and you're going to have plenty of towels and this and that, right? It's going to smell lovely in the lobby. I love nice hotels smells. But alternatively, we the three of us and Mark Simpson were grabbing dinner before one of the evening events, and I'm with Mark. One of my favorite things to do is just wander a little bit and then go a street or two off the main road. And we landed on an excellent restaurant. Will, what was it called?
El Doble.
El Doble. And they did basically Asian fusion tapas. And, not to say it was the complete opposite experience of the Michelin restaurant, but it was very personable, and the owner, greeted us and told us the story of the property, and then went and walked her dog home and came back and, made sure that we had what we needed and the food was, what we expected. And
the food was amazing. I'm not gonna lie. For what I did eat, I was like, when I go back to Spain, I'm 100% going back to that restaurant. Like,
it was unbelievable. It was a fantastic meal. And it basically highlights kind of the difference of what luxury short-term rentals and luxury hotels and great serviced short-term rentals can provide. You expect things with these luxury hotels. In short-term rentals, you don't always know what you're going to get in a new city. But when you find, if you get lucky or if you do your research, you can find those management companies or those hosts that, leave you telling their story onwards. I didn't remember the name of the restaurant, but I'd be able to remember the face of the owner, and the edamame hummus was unbelievable. So Brand, if you nail that recipe, please let me know.
I know it's on my list of things to try. It was so good. Well, I think that like there's been a lot of conversation in our industry and also at this conference about operators versus individual hosts. But this, like the second restaurant we went to, like really reminded me of when you get this kind of rare experience at, a rental. And I remember in early college days, we did a accidental private room in someone's house. We thought we were getting the whole apartment, and it was in Copenhagen, me and my friend, and it was just a room in this guy's house. And we were instantly like a little on edge because like that doesn't seem great. But it turned, he had bikes for us. He like recommended this chocolate fair. He got us into a really hard to get into club to go see Nico Jar. He told us about a trance festival in an old church. Like he totally made our whole stay with like all these really personalized little touches that we wouldn't have even thought of before. So I think like, when Michael's saying like, if you go to an Amman or a Ritz-Carlton or something, like there's really no room for error because you are paying so much and there's an expectation that's been set. But I kind of like when you can wander into these fun experiences. And then though, on the flip side, and this is in, short-term rentals and in restaurants, you can wander into off the path restaurant and be like, this is terrible. And so you can have a host that doesn't have all their things together and you don't have a great experience. And I think those are the ones that like are the kind of like clickbaity news ones that we see all the time.
When you're using hand towels as a bath towel.
Yeah, something like that.
I wanted to touch on this because the Friday before flying out, I think I left on Michael? We left on a Monday. Yeah, we left on Monday morning or a Monday afternoonish, and that Friday we had a conversation with some industry friends out in the world from short-term rentals and the professional vacation rental traditional management type era. And a lot of the times there's this kind of conversation, or I don't know, pointing of the fingers, where it's like us versus them, the host versus the VRM, and the VRM versus the host, etc. And the big thing for me was just like a takeaway of like seeing this Michelin rated restaurant version and this individual hole in the wall, and like legit hole in the wall. Like if you see our picture,
we sat in a window.
we sat in a window, and it was so great. It was so personal. And at the end of the day, Michael and I remember having a conversation, I think the next morning in the taxi ride to the airport, was both restaurants I would do 100% again. I think there was such a specialness to being immediately having our needs met with anticipation from the Michelin restaurant guys, then to like the relaxed comfort vibe of like the owner knew what she was doing. She knew her menu was curated specifically based off of her experiences living in Hong Kong and like all this other stuff. Like it was such a special moment that seeing that, you know, Michelin versus independent, I think bringing it back to short-term rentals in that conversation of vacation rentals versus STR host is that they can live in harmony in a lot of great ways. And there doesn't need to be a us versus them type mentality. It's really a, how do we continue to create a standardization with the personalization, which is really hard. And like, I don't really know the answer to it, but just to see that restaurant world correlate to the recent conversation had the week before was really inspiring for me. I actually took a lot of notes on kind of like how would this look moving forward for vacation rentals, but obviously maybe that's a conversation for another episode in the future. But yeah, it was really inspiring to see how we can kind of correlate the two different segments of hospitality and bring it into where our listeners and our audience currently is today.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we also have to acknowledge about those higher end restaurants where there is all sorts of theater, and the same goes for those kinds of hotels, is the cost. I mean, not only you pay your cost as a guest, but also the cost of running those operations. They're incredibly personnel heavy. You know, like you looked at that restaurant and there's just like so many people. Same thing at those kinds of hotels. There's someone that is specializing in all sorts of little things. You have an overabundance of staff, you know, and so those you can't have, that can't be necessarily like the norm. And, you know, you realize that those experiences are only available to certain people because we're certainly not going to spend that amount on dinner every day.
Every night.
Every night. If you're paying well, I'm happy to go. But so I think that, you know, it's kind of like there's all, like, to your point, like all of these things can live together. It's not a zero sum game. And you do, like, you know, some of these experiences are not available to everyone. And then some experiences aren't for everyone. Like if you're super, like, if you really prize like or prioritize luxury and comfort, then maybe going to that the quirky host where you're going to be like, you know, interacting with them and stuff, like maybe that's not your vibe, you know, but then you can go to the Ritz and that have exactly what you want.
I think it also highlights there's people who are naturally good at hospitality and there's people that have to be trained in hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people that are neither. And if you fall in the neither camp, do something about it. Hire someone who's great at hospitality. Go take some classes on, you know, at your local university or whatever. Make sure you attend industry events to learn about the human aspect of it. Because I think that piece is often missing in short-term rentals is the human aspect, the human touch. Mm-hmm. Hotels are great at it sometimes. Restaurants are great at it sometimes, but you know it when you see it. And those are the places you keep returning back to and you tell your friends about. And maybe I'm biased here, but you also remember the stories that these folks share with you. Mm-hmm. You might not remember the name of the company or the property you stayed at, but you certainly will remember the host or your interactions, especially both positive and negative interactions.
Yeah.
I'm a Delta loyalist, but I had a terrible route with Delta the past couple of days. Don't worry, Delta, I'm not leaving you yet. Let's see how you respond. But I mean, all in all, we are in hospitality. It is more than just heads and beds. When you do that, you can build a great personal brand, a great professional brand. And you know, that's what sets the best companies apart. Yeah. Ritz-Carlton built a reputation by doing everything they could, saying yes to every guest's needs and anticipating it.
Yeah, on the flight here, I was listening, and this is the last comment I'll make on this. I know there's one other question I want to ask you guys going into scale, but on the way here, I was listening to a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, and it's written by, I think the author's, I know his first name's Will. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. So it's written by a guy named Will, and not just a guy, but he actually worked for Danny Myers back in the day. And there was a specific chapter that I was listening to on him talking about taking over as a GM at this newest restaurant that was going to be like the fancy of fancy. It was going to set the new standard. And they had to find the chef to fit the building, and they couldn't really go ahead.
I know who it is. It's 11 Madison Park.
Yes, exactly. That's the one. It was like I was kind of tired, so I was in and out. But he was talking about, like, you know, so many times, especially in these well-trained fans, like these Michelin rated places, you know, some of these chefs are in this industry and getting trained, you know, since they're 14, and working their way up. So that's all they know. They don't know like the hole in the wall type experience, and having that mindset of it was always the kitchen against the front of house. And their mindset going into it is once they found the chef and he was becoming the new GM, they had a heart-to-heart kind of sit down and say, if we're going to do this, unless we go this route of joining as a team, partnering together, not being, you know, front of house versus kitchen, then we shouldn't start this relationship. And I think that was super important. Just again, kind of coming back to the conversation of short-term rentals and vacation rental hotel kind of conversation, is that I've really pointing in like the partnership aspect. It's not us versus them and that kind of mentality. And the more we focus on bringing these two worlds together, it's going to be way more beneficial for all included. That's kind of just my thought on that. But my question to you two, outside of our Michelin rated experience and our hole in the wall end of trip experience, which were both great, what was one of your favorite parts of Scale? And like out of the people that we've talked to and got to interview and got to, maybe if we attended a panel or if we were on a panel, because I know we got to do that the first day, there's so many little takeaways. I just know that there's two main ones for me, and one of them was the Michelin one, and would love to hear any kind of closing notes from you guys.
Okay, sure. So I just really loved getting to meet the European operators and vendors that I normally don't get to interact with as much over here. You know, at all of the kind of North American conferences, it is a lot of the same people, obviously, like that's where we all live. So it was just really great getting to, know different people, getting to know people I've met just a little bit better. It's also funny. There's people that I'm like, do I know you, or have I just seen you on LinkedIn? And I got to actually like meet and talk to a lot of those people, and just I was, again, it sounds a little cheesy or cliche, but I just love our industry so much, and I really enjoyed all these conversations I got to have, and realizing, especially talking with different operators, that like we're all dealing with the same problems, and maybe at different levels, but this is a tough business to be in, but I'm glad that we're all in this, because I think we have some really smart and creative people, and it was just I don't know, like a real joy to get to know them better.
Yeah, there is definitely a support group in the industry for one another. From a high level, it was amazing in Europe. You might be sitting next to someone with 800 units and you've never heard of them. Yeah, that person in America would be beating their chest and bragging about it a lot. So there's definitely some more humble pie in Europe than there is in the States. But I think the big takeaway for me, we had him on our micro series, Dave Cordner. The best way to brand is to put a face to the brand. Faceless brands struggle. It's harder to relate to a brand than it is to the face of the brand. And Dave has done such a great job. He's basically the ambassador to Belfast, and he's got 70 units, right? It doesn't take much for you to kind of raise your own personal bar, consistency and effort, but Dave's done a great job at that. And the takeaway from one of his talks was make sure you're adding yourself into your comms and your media and your socials, and that way not only will you recruit or attract more guests, but you do that with more property owners as well. So shout out to Dave. What's up?
Yeah, I guess we gotta get Michael get more social media
Yeah,
stuff.
I
Gotta
know.
get
Were
you
you
to
volunteering?
Yeah.
Will, you're definitely the face of this podcast, so
Yeah.
we'll let you keep holding that title.
Let's become rotating faces. How about that? That'd be great. I know we're getting at we love to stick to our 30-minute timeline, and for the sake of the listeners and our audience who is very used to this 30-minute, but we've been going over the last maybe week or two. It's all good. We're just a couple minutes, but you guys ready to do a hospitality hotline before we wrap up the day?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's do a hospitality hotline. Here we go.
Hey guys, love the show. This is John Sakaya from TopKey. We're an all-in-one financial operating system for vacation rental managers. We're doing a lot of hiring, so have two questions around that theme. Question one, as you've all hired lots of people across your careers, and I'm just curious, are there any specific interview questions that you've found to be consistently helpful to possibly uncover, or indicate whether a candidate will be a top performer? Or conversely, whether they are someone who's not right for the job. And then my second question, kind of similar to that theme, is fast forward till after an employee starts. Are there any specific warning signs you have observed within, say, that first 30, 45-day period of hiring that person that have consistently proven to show that the candidate maybe wasn't a good fit long term? You hear a lot of people suggest that, it's important to not wait if someone's not working out, and possibly to let them go sooner than later. It's better for all sides. So just curious if you found any indicators that have helped you maybe ascertain that better. Appreciate it. Love the show. Love what you guys are doing, and looking forward to hearing your answers. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Brandy, you've been on I think probably a more hiring spree than anybody else here. So I'd love you to kick it off.
Sure. So I think that the questions, depending on what position you're hiring them for, but asking them to solve, or like their take on like real problems that you're having, and to see like how much research have they done on your company. And so, for example, if you're hiring someone in your commercial or marketing department, like what would you fix about our website, and have them list like 5 things, because they should be able to do that, or they maybe should have already done that. Right. And then a shout out to Andrew Kitchell. He gave me a great idea actually at Scale about having them present their best idea. So like kind of seeing kind of like what they've done in their career and how they would present that to you. And then really for me, like personally, interviewing is my least favorite thing to do for hiring, not for podcasts. But because, people can tell you anything in a 60-minute interview. So I think that having in contracts, especially for higher level people, a 90-day, 3-month probationary period where you're like, hey, let's see like how you actually work out. Are you a good fit with our culture and our values? Do you like us? Because that can also be the thing. Like they might not like working for your company after a couple weeks, a couple months. So I think building in, whether you want it to be a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever you want, but building in that chunk of time so that you can see how well the person actually works with you. And then if it doesn't work out, you have a nice clean out. And to his point, like definitely addressing those things sooner rather than later. I have definitely made that mistake of just like not wanting to deal with maybe an uncomfortable situation, or maybe not realizing it, that they weren't a good fit until it was too late. So definitely kind of addressing that as soon as possible is, better for everyone.
Agreed. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, interviewing in the past, it was always for similar types of people or roles. So those are really easy. But when you start interviewing for roles outside of your expertise, it's pretty hard. We hired a historian, and that was the first historian interview I had ever done. And I spoke to maybe 10 different people. And ultimately, a historian, they're not front of house. They don't need this big gregarious personality, which I'm used to hiring for in biz dev or sales. And so the little mini task of like, how do I get in your head a little bit? We just gave them the top 3 or 4, just a little article of give us the history of this place. and see how they perform. Startups, you can tell really quickly if someone's going to belong or not. And I'm same question as you, Brandy, like, or statement. If they haven't done any research and know nothing about you, they're not a good startup fit, period. If they're not willing to do a little bit of homework on their own and research it, there's just zero chance that that they're going to be a good fit for you, because you need self-starters in startups. You need people who will jump in without being told what they need to do and just do it. So, and then on the sales biz dev side, my favorite question to ask is, are you a morning person or a night person? It's interesting to see most really good sales biz dev people are going to be morning people. Not all, but it is a good bellwether for, it's just a fun question to ask too.
I like it. For me, I would say that, just to make it really short, I've hired back in the day of like 2018, and I was a very much different manager and leader at the time. And I was also given the hiring guideline, basically the job description, the duties, all the stuff. And I was a very much different leader. So I sucked at interviewing. I was more about personality than experience and quality and all the other stuff. Today, I've always said this. I've gotten very lucky with my hires. Claire and Michael, shout out to them. When I hired them for HFM, employee number 1, employee number 2, they have been with me side by side, and like very much like just, it was such a perfect fit. And I think I was talking to my business coach the other week on going into, I'm looking to hire more people and just getting really, like, I've never built out job descriptions before, and duties and day-to-day, and how to put personal and business goals together for them and kind of build a track path. And I was talking about a struggle I had with a personal assistant that I hired, and it just wasn't a good fit and all this other stuff. And then I was like, I even asked her about our core values and our mission statement and all this other stuff in the interview. And he's like, why are you asking her about the stuff that you've created when you need to find out if her natural instinct is to already align with those, instead of like asking if she aligns with them? And so that for me was like a really big takeaway, just on maybe not with like description and performance, but making sure that for me, culture is the biggest thing. Claire, Michael, myself, and now Kelsey, who's our 4th team member, really are like a tight knit clique, like not clique, but community and group. So bringing everybody else into that's really important for us, and making sure that culture and quality and personality fits really, really there is super important. So obviously very different times and very different hiring phases, but yeah.
It's a lot easier to do one at a time than when you're hiring 10, 15 at a time. So
for sure. Awesome. Yeah. Well, awesome, guys. I miss your faces in person.
I know.
It's gonna be sad to think that it's gonna be forever until we see each other again, but it will happen. Do you want to give us?
Will.
I know. Unless we just move to Spain together. Just kidding. That won't happen for me.
I'm actively trying to move to Spain. So.
Yeah, thanks.
And we'll see how that goes next week. Just kidding. But for all of our listeners right now, if you're still here, thank you so much for tuning in. And just to give you a heads up for who's coming on to the show next week, we have Luca Zambello, who is the CEO and founder of Journey. We're going to have him talking about their new AI platform and what they've been building in the last year or so behind the scenes, and how they've launched it, and what they see the future of hospitality from hotels and short-term rentals. So excited to have Luca on, and to see you guys, of course, again next week. Any thoughts for the listeners? That
just to stay tuned for go back and listen to this in the podcast version, so you can hear the live from the lift segment.
Live from the lift. Let's not make that a segment that reoccurs. I would love it for my anxiety attack not to happen again. That'd be good. Awesome. Well, Michael, what about you? You look like you had a thought to say.
All good, man.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe, share, send it to your mom. Make sure that your grandma and grandpa all listen to the show, everybody and above. And we'll see you guys all again next week. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Good Morning Hospitality. I'm your co-host, Will Slickers, and today I have my other co-host,
Brandy Canali.
and guess what? You hear that beeping in the background? We're stuck in an elevator in Spain, and we have two amazing guests here. One, which was a past co-host of the show. Welcome back.
Nice to be here. Well, not in this place, actually, where we are now. Stuck in an elevator, which is less than 80 by 80 centimeters.
Michael Ross, the one and only. And then, of course,
Cannot from AGL Atelier.
look at that. We got the HL team up in here. I'm suffering right now. Are you guys suffering?
I'm not suffering because I maintain calm in stressful situations. And
How can hospitality providers prevent this?
well, yeah, all your
maybe proper
your
signage.
signs in your elevators should actually dictate the maximum amount of people that can be in an elevator. The current number says 4, and there are 4 people in this elevator.
Yeah.
Also, we are in Spain, so rules are a little bit more like guidelines and suggestions. And
like something you should
someone
So it means
someone
becoming mañana.
Someone yelled at us and said that we should have known that only 3 people were supposed to be in this elevator when we have, in fact, ridden this elevator with 4 people before. So, it's just another fun adventure abroad. What do you have to say about it, Michael?
I'm sweaty.
Gernot,
Fair.
I'm curious.
I am very sweaty. Yes, well,
Gernot, from an AJL perspective, when you guys are consulting with operators, what's the kind of like conversation around safety? Oh my God, the lights just turned off. Okay, and
it's okay.
Yes,
Listen,
that's the excitement factor that I really like to have, in situations like this. And what we always recommend is bring somebody in Spain if you're stuck in an elevator, or if you're about to get stuck in an elevator, bring somebody that speaks Spanish. Usually the guidelines that we hand out to are more like, if girls call the fire department, they usually are at least 30 to 40% quicker. That's the benchmark. And if you say you have 4 girls in an elevator, and I think we tried hard, but it didn't really work, right?
I didn't get that memo
even-
when I was calling the
Yeah.
elevator company.
Yeah, and the good thing is right now
Check your
somebody
emails next time.
speaking Spanish fluently as you do, and then on top of that, bring somebody with a calm voice, and we found this all in one.
Thank
This is
you. I
absolutely
appreciate it.
amazing.
yeah, but only if she like read her email about the like 4 girls in an elevator type thing. That would have been way better.
I don't think that was in the show notes, Will.
Sorry, your producer was having a panic attack. He can't freaking breathe.
Yeah, the lights going off is a nice touch. We do have illumination via cell phones because we live in the modern world. What would have been really helpful is if we had a fucking beer.
Oh my.
Or
God.
oxygen.
We have oxygen because we have the elevator.
Well, we have oxygen for 5 minutes. So this show won't take longer. So,
Oh, we
lights
have
goes
power
on.
back. Okay, shut the door. Shut the doors.
Okay.
Oh my God. I think we have life.
Please
Yeah.
don't touch any.